In 1715, King Louis XIV died, leaving France with grand gilded palaces and a paralyzed economy. Decades of continuous warfare had drained the treasury, saddling the nation with a debt that was mathematically impossible to pay off. Back then, money meant one thing: physical metal. Gold and silver coins, known as specie, were internal, only acceptable currency. They were heavy, easily hidden away during crises, and most importantly, their supply was strictly finite. Because the supply of gold and silver was so limited, the French economy stalled. The government could not find enough coins in circulation to pay its own domestic obligations, let alone stimulate growth. A Scottish gambler and self-taught mathematician named John Law saw this crisis as an opportunity. He had spent years traveling across Europe, studying the mechanics of banking and trade while in exile for killing a man in a duel. Law realized that France's core issue was a lack of liquidity, not a lack of wealth. To get the economy moving, he argued that the country had to move beyond its reliance on heavy, finite metal. He proposed a radical shift in how value was perceived. Money did not need to be made of gold. It only required the collective trust of the people using it. Law convinced the French regent to establish what eventually became the Royal Bank. Instead of minting coins, the bank issued paper notes backed by the crown, featuring a written promise to pay the bearer in silver on demand. Commerce instantly became faster and more efficient. Merchants preferred carrying lightweight paper over hauling metal, and as the economy stirred back to life, Law's initial success gave him the political capital to expand his experiment. By 1718, Law secured absolute control over the Royal Bank, giving him the exclusive legal authority to issue new banknotes for the entire kingdom. He then acquired the Mississippi Company, a commercial venture that the Crown granted an absolute monopoly over all trade in France's North American territories. Few people in Paris had ever seen Louisiana, so Law was able to market the unexplored territory as a guaranteed utopia, telling the public it was overflowing with gold, silver, and endless resources. By merging the central bank with a speculative colonial monopoly, Law created a system where the government's debt was now inextricably tied to the success of a single company. Law introduced a debt-for-equity swap, where citizens exchanged government bonds for Mississippi Company shares. The Royal Bank printed paper banknotes, loaned to the public to buy stock. By allowing purchases on installment, citizens took on massive debt, and the share price climbed. The financial engine was now self-sustaining. The bank printed money to inflate the stock price, and the rising stock price made the new money seem valuable, creating a loop that existed independently of any actual trade or revenue. In Paris, along the Rue Quincampoix, this loop ignited a mania. Shares jumped from 500 to 10,000 livres. Servants and clerks became wealthy in weeks, giving rise to a new term, the millionaire. But the physical reality remained entirely unchanged. Ships returning from the Mississippi brought back only timber and furs. The glittering gold mines that John Law had promised simply did not exist. As long as a steady stream of new investors kept purchasing paper shares, the system appeared stable. But the entire French economy now rested purely on a foundation of collective belief rather than material wealth. The reversal began in early 1720. A few large investors, realizing the internal logic of the bank didn't match the reality of the colonies, began demanding to cash out their paper notes for physical gold. When crowds gathered at the Royal Bank to follow suit, they discovered that the vault held only a small fraction of the physical metal needed to honor the banknotes Law had issued. In a desperate attempt to stop the panic, Law issued royal decrees forcing paper to be the only legal currency and making it a crime for any citizen to hold more than a small amount of gold coins. This coercion failed because it destroyed the very thing the system relied on: trust. By forcing people to use paper, the government only confirmed that the metal it was supposed to represent was gone. The crash was total. Stock prices plummeted, hyperinflation destroyed the savings of the working class, and paper fortunes that had been worth millions became useless scraps of parchment. John Law was forced to flee the country in disguise. The damage lasted for decades. A traumatized France rejected the concepts of paper money and central banking for generations, stifling its industrial growth while rivals like Britain embraced the very tools Law had pioneered. There is a deep irony to the disaster. Despite the ruin he caused, John Law's underlying theory, that an economy could expand using credit and paper rather than just gold, was correct. Every modern financial system now operates on the blueprint Law built, fiat currency backed by nothing but faith. His story remains a warning that while money is a shared illusion, once that trust is broken, the wealth it represents simply ceases to exist.